A warm welcome to everyone from Excel and Excel. Hope you all are safe and doing well. Thank you all for enrolling in this event. Excel and Excel welcomes you all. Our today's session is about M code recipes achieve more with Power Query by Miss Celia Alves, who is right here with us. Hello, ma'am. How are you?
Hello, good morning. How are you? Oh, good morning for me, for you, most of you out there, it's good afternoon or good evening. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good as well. Thank you so much for accepting our invite and being on our show.
My pleasure.
So before we start the session, I would give a quick introduction about Excel and Excel. So Excel and Excel is a data analytics firm that solves high impact business problem using data and technology. We provide end-to-end services in the field of data analytics and data visualization. Our core services include analytics, consulting, and training. So as you all are aware, Excel and Excel presents the popular talk show EiEFreshTalk on its YouTube channel, where it hosts great leaders and subject matter experts from various fields from India and abroad to speak regularly on variety of topics ranging from Excel to analytics and finance to financial modeling. So few of our past events are Data Transformation using Power Query by Ms. Indira Bhandari and Ms. Veda Bhandari, Time for Automation, Power Query and Power Automate by Mr. Farashid, Google Sheet plus Power Query for report automation in Excel and Power BI by Mr. Michael Olafusi, and Extending the Power Query joins by simulating fuzzy matching by Mr. Gasper Kansek. And let me introduce you, the speaker for the day, Ms. Celia Alves. Celia Alves is a certified MOS expert in Excel, Microsoft trainer, and develops complex solutions combining Excel, VBA, Power Query, Power Pivot to automate tasks, analyze data, and model business situation. She got her licentiate and master's degree both in mathematics and education from the University of Lisbon in Portugal and worked in a high school mathematics teacher for 2 decades up to 2013 when she moved to Canada. After reskilling herself, Ms. Celia built a new career as an Excel consultant and trainer, ultimately founding her business Solve and Excel Consulting, serving companies in a wide variety of industries. Celia is also a speaker and the founder and leader of MS Excel Toronto Meetup Group. In 2020, she received the Microsoft MVP Award in Office Apps and Services for her contribution to the community. We welcome you, ma'am. It's
Thank you.
great to
Thank you
have you
for the
with us.
introduction.
Over to you.
It's over to me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much for the introduction. In fact, you saved me a couple of minutes there. Let me just share my screen. I believe it's this one. Let me bring Zoom over there. And let's start. Okay. So welcome to this session, everyone who is with us today. I hope everyone is okay and healthy. And please feel free to participate in the chat through YouTube. I know there is a little bit of lag, a little bit of delay when I speak until you actually hear what I say. But feel free to leave comments there. If I ask anything, feel free to leave your answers there, and hopefully Nidhi will help me. Will tell me what's coming up in the chat. If any important question, feel free to drop that there, and we will have questions time at the end of the session. Okay. So Nidhi already introduced me. This is my company, and my focus usually is in building applications, mostly with Excel and Power Query, Power Pivot. And each project is different depending on what the company, the client needs. Yes, I studied in Portugal, mathematics. I was a high school teacher there for 20 years. Then I became a Microsoft Excel consultant when I moved to Canada. After a while, I discovered that my passion for Excel, I had been used it for many years, but not knowing the power of the tool. And then I started to discover that and realized that there was a lot of work to do using this tool, that companies need this type of skills. Going back to my teacher roots, I started a YouTube channel where I teach solutions for different problems that I encounter through when I'm developing these projects. And recently I also started a series focused in report automation. So if you are interested in learning about how to make your work faster, some kind of reporting tasks that you need to repeat every week, every month, and takes you a considerable amount of time repeating those same tasks, feel free to check that YouTube channel. I'll show you more at the end, but we have a dedicated series of lessons there. And they include Power Query, VBA, Excel functions, all that type of things that combined can allow us to build a solution. And I'll also talk about the Microsoft Excel Toronto meetup group at the end. If you are interested to join, you are very welcome to do so. Before we start, and because there's a delay in, like I mentioned, and from the moment I speak until you are able to answer, I would like to ask you, have you used Power Query before? Because this session is assuming that you are already working with Power Query, but I would like to leave something for everyone. So we will in fact start with a very simple example of how to use Power Query. There is a link in the video description that has files for you to download, and one of those files is one CSV file that you can download, and you can open Excel in your computer, and then we will start a new Excel file to connect to that CSV file as an exercise. That will be our first example, and you will be able to do that with me, alongside with me. Then the other examples I will just explain, no exercise files for those, because then it would take us a long time. So to have an idea of the type of audience that I have here today, I would really like to know, have you used Power Query? If you have used Power Query, type 1, option 1, if you use it almost every day in your work. So if you are very familiar with Power Query. Type 2 in the chat on YouTube if you have tried it a few times but didn't go far with it, so you didn't get used to Power Query yet. 3, if you only use queries that were created by other people, maybe your colleagues, they created queries in Power Query, and then you are the user of that file that refreshes the query, but you don't really know what's behind it. And then 4, if you never used Power Query, and 5, if you don't even know what Power Query is. And don't feel ashamed for that. In fact, if you don't and you are here, congratulations for that, for taking the initiative of being here and listening. And because when we start, when we come to these sessions and we hear even something about that we don't know for completely, that we completely don't know about, never heard about, that it doesn't matter, because there's a seed that stays with us, and later other pieces of the puzzle that we will be able to gather from other sessions, other learning opportunities, will help us build our skills. So it doesn't matter what the level is for you that you are at the moment in regards to using Power Query. I hope this session has something for you. And let me know at the end if you have any questions. I'm sure that it will be interesting, at least knowing what the power is that we have in Power Query, okay? And just bear with us. So Nidhi, if you have any questions there in YouTube channel, let me know what does that look like? Are people answering 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 the most? What do you think we have more in there?
People are answering two more.
More to tried a few times,
Yeah.
but didn't go far. Okay, so that's good. That's good if you are in that stage, because you are in a good position to evolve. If you never used Power Query, there are a lot of resources to learn about it. My YouTube channel has some resources. I'll launch a course soon about that too. Yeah, and there's so many different resources online that you can find. Okay, so what our agenda will be today, we will talk about what is the M language and how we can access that language. We will talk about some learning resources to learn about M code. And then we will go through several examples. In fact, there's an introductory example that I forgot to put here in this list. And then we will go through these 4 examples throughout the session. Okay, so what is the M language? The M language is the code, the programming language behind Power Query. And when we work in Power Query, and to start working with Power Query, we don't really need to know that language, because Power Query offers us a user interface where we can just click buttons using the ribbon and the various options that we get there. And every time we take an action, clicking one of those buttons, there's a code being generated behind that we will, behind the scenes, that we can play the next time we have updated data, and it will reproduce the same steps. So we are creating an automation process here. But we don't really need to know that language. But if we do start to understand that language, then we will do much better using Power Query. We will have other options open for us, and we will be better and more powerful users. So this Power Query tool is available in all these other programs. So not only in Excel for Windows, but also in other programs. Excel for Mac has, at the moment, very, very limited capabilities in Power Query. So you cannot really build queries there. It's mostly about refreshing queries. But then we have Power BI. Of course, if you are Power BI users, Power Query, the M code language is the same. So whatever I'm explaining here using Excel today, you can use it in Power BI or Power Apps, Power Automate, etc. So all these other programs by Microsoft use Power Query one way or the other, some at a more complete level in terms of features available, others not so much. You will have a PDF too in that link of the video description with these slides, and you have these links here for more information, okay? So let's start the first example with Power Query, with M code, an example of generating a query, creating a query. And this example everyone should be able to follow, even if you never used Power Query. So you should have this file that says camera CSV. If we open that file, we see it's a very, very ugly file. If we double click here, we can see that all the data, and we have, if we scroll down, we have just over 1,000 records. But everything is condensed in one column. And probably most of us already went through this problem before. And when we have a CSV file, it's in fact a text file that presents us data in a tabular format most of the times. The first row is usually for the column headers. So if we look, let me maybe put this a little bit bigger. If we look at the first cell, it says model semicolon. Usually it should be a colon. So CSV stands for comma separated values. And it means that comma will separate the different values from the different fields. Comma works as a separator for CSV files in, for example, North America, where our decimal separator is dot. So we can use the comma as another separator. This file is probably from Europe, where comma is the decimal separator. So we need to use semicolon to separate the different fields. That could be the issue here. In fact, we have values with dot instead for the decimals. So it doesn't matter. We can receive CSV files in these using these different layouts. We just need to be aware of how it works. So we have here model, semicolon, release date, semicolon, max resolution, etc. Meaning these are the titles of the columns that we should have. So one column model, the first value would be ACFA and ePhoto 1280. And then for the release date, for that record, we would have the year 1997 and so forth, max resolution, this value. Of course, working with this CSV file is not pleasant, and it's not easy. And if we try to transfer this, open this, so when we click, just let me show you another thing. When we have a CSV file and I double click and open, by default, Excel opens, but a CSV file is not an Excel file, right? If you go open with the notepad, you see that this is in fact a text, like a text file, right? That's why, but it can be open in Excel. Anyways, we want to extract some information. Let's imagine we want to extract some information from that report. And we can use Power Query for that. And everyone should be able to do this. If you have an Excel 2016, 2019, or Microsoft 365, you should be able to do this now. I'm using Excel for Microsoft 365. If you have 2010 or 2013, there is an add-in that can be downloaded from the Microsoft website, and you will also have Power Query, but with a lot less features than Microsoft 365. If you can have it, is what I recommend. Is the most complete one and is getting new features every day. So I just created a new file, Excel file here. I'm going to call it report. And let's say now that we want to connect to that CSV file. So what we do is we come here to data, not queries and connections. And then from text / CSV, because we want to connect to a CSV file. And then we look for the browse, we browse for the folder until we find the file that we need. And it is this one. We double click that. And when we do this, we get this window that is presented by Power Query before really opening its editor. Well, we could say this is already part of the editor, or it's in between Excel and the Power Query editor. This is asking us, well, it seems you are connecting to a CSV file, and there's a bunch of settings here. For example, here, the limiter, it recognized is the semicolon, is the delimiter in that file. So it's good. Usually I don't touch anything here. Just go to transform data. And now we are in the Power Query editor, okay? We have one step here. Some of you may have gotten a second step that says change data type and promoted headers maybe. If you got those, you can delete them. Just click an X that shows there on the left. And then we can, you are at the same level as I am here. I will pause just for a little bit of time, just a few seconds, to give everyone time. We can see that we have, it's looking already much better, and we have not done anything yet. We have all these columns, all the information came beautifully separated in columns. It's just so nice to see our information like that. So things to keep in mind. We have a formula bar here at the top. If you don't have that, you can go to View and click here where it says Formula Bar. In fact, let me see if I can maybe zoom in a little bit. Formula bar there. And this is where that so-called M code, the M language, is being created for us, okay? The Power Query is creating that for us. If you are starting Power Query, using Power Query, you don't need to pay too much attention to this for now. If you are still needing to pay a lot more of attention to other details. But then as you start feeling more comfortable with using Power Query, then I recommend you that you pay attention to what happens here every time you create a new step, okay? So let's imagine that I want to keep the columns, the model, the year, which would be the release date here, and the price. That is, price is, I think, further to the right. There. Needy, if someone complains about the Zoom that is too small or something like that, please let me know, okay? So how do we do this in Power Query? First thing, and before selecting those columns, maybe we should do is to get this row and say, use this first row as the column headers. Okay, so here at the Home tab, there's this button that says use first row as headers. You click there, and automatically, just like that, now we have all the columns named correctly. I also want to do, so let me do what I was saying before. I want to keep this column. I want to keep the release date column, and I want to keep the price. Doesn't matter. Let's imagine I just need to do a report with this information. Okay. To do that, I'm holding down Control, select one column, hold down Control, select the other one, and then the other one that we want, as we do in Excel. Right click, and then we can do remove other columns. So this tells what Power Query wrote for us here. If you see, it wrote select columns, and then there's something here. We will see what that means in a minute. And then in between curly brackets, we have the names of the columns that we selected to keep, and the other ones were eliminated. So this is table.select columns would be the M code function that Power Query is using when we say remove the other columns. That's the M function that Power Query automatically applies to this step. In fact, I can make this a little bit bigger there. There's many things you can see. For those of you who are new to Power Query, there's many options here that we can learn how to use, and that allow us to clean and transform our data until we have the data the way we need it. Let's imagine that I want to separate the brand from the model. If you realize we have the brand here for the cameras, and then different models. And what separates one from the other would be the space at the first space character. So I'm going to assume that that works throughout the column. And what I'll do is I'll select the columns, click there, and then we have here split column by delimiter. Okay, that's the option I'm using there. And I need to say the delimiter is a space. That's correct. Each occurrence of the delimiter? No, I just want to split at the first occurrence. So leftmost delimiter, and OK. So I get one column for the brand. and one column for the model. Something did not go well here. Let me try again. Okay, we can just double click to rename. And when we do this, we get another step here on the right that says renamed columns. And we get a new function, mcode here, that is the function to rename columns. And if you see, it's quite self-explanatory. Table dot rename columns. So that says it all. Then the first thing that appears here before the comma is the name of the step above, split column by delimiter, right? So for example, if I come here at the step above and decide to rename this, not like that, right click and rename. If I rename this by saying split brand model, and on purpose, I didn't leave any spaces there. I'm going to click to hit enter, and you will look at here. So we still have the same name, not here. We will have to see the step after. So let me click enter. And now when we check the next step, we see that here we got the name of the previous step. So I renamed the previous step, and automatically Power Query updated the code in the step after that. Okay. So the first portion inside each function is always the name of the previous step. Is always the name of the previous step when Power Query is creating the steps for us. But we can manipulate and do different than that if we go and operate in the code manually. We will do that, okay? And then here it says we have a list of columns. Then the first column, previously named model.1, name it brand, and the second column that was previously named model.2, name it model. That's what's happening here. And again, if you are just starting to use Power Query, you don't need to worry much about it. But if you start paying attention, these little things, you will start to understand them, then they will come together for you. They will start making more and more sense as time goes. The last step that we should do before loading our data into Excel is to make sure we have all the correct data types here. This is telling me this is text, this is text, this is text is correct. And then the price, if I'm going to need these numbers and to do calculations with them, then I need to transform them to numbers. So we could either use decimal number or a currency data type, probably would be the most appropriate data types for this situation. And that's it. So remember that very ugly CSV file that we had. Now we have this nice table, just the columns we need, everything so well organized. So now we come here to home, close and load. Close and load to is the best option to choose. And Power Query is asking me if I want to load to a table. Yes, to a new worksheet. No, let's put it here in this existing worksheet. And okay. So that's it. Now I have my query there. And the beauty of this is that if I change something in my source, so if I open that very ugly file that we have before, and if I come here and let's say that we can add more data, or we can change information. For example, let's say that this file now is ACFA. This data now is ACFA test, would be the model, 1280. Enter. If I save this, then I come here, right click, refresh, and just like that, any changes that we have made in our data, any additions, if I add new rows there, Power Query will update everything for me. So this was just it was not really part of my initial presentation, but it is, since I saw we had a lot of people registered for the session, and I wanted to give everyone the opportunity to understand a little bit what we are talking about here. I hope this was useful for you so far. So now let's see what is that M code, where it lives, and how we can manipulate it. Okay. Going back to, let me maybe save my file here. Going back to the camera, just taking a note here so that I don't forget. Okay. Going back to the editor here, and if you don't see this, you can come to data, queries and connections. And of course, if you have Excel 2016 or 19, your ribbon can be a little bit different. You will have to try to, it will be data queries, show queries, I believe it is in 2016. Double click here, it opens the Power Query editor for you. And so like I mentioned, each step is recorded here in the formula bar that we already saw. And there's also another place where we can see the M code. If we come to View, Advanced Editor, and we can see here all the code written for us. So we can also learn how to, if we start to understand what's in here, we can also alter the code directly in here. Okay, just trying to put this bigger for you. Each step is in one different row. Okay, before, after the equal sign is the same code that we saw in the formula bar in the editor. And before, so after the equal sign, and before the equal sign is the name of the steps. Okay. If the step name does not have space characters like this one, we get this very clean representation of the step name. And if you see, this is the step name, and then in the row right after, we have the same name at the beginning of the function. Then this step name is renamed columns. So we get renamed columns right after in the next step, saying that this operation, table transform column types, is to be applied to the previous step. All the other steps that have space characters need to be in between double quotes and then with the hash sign or the pound sign just before that. And that's how they appear here and then here. So this is all to refer to a step name that has space characters in it. What else? We see here that the path to the file where I have the path to where I have my file saved to where we connected is recorded here, is hard coded there. And another thing that I wanted to tell you is that after, at the end of each row of code, we always have a comma in all the steps. We always need that comma, otherwise it will give us an error, except the last one. And then usually this name here, this step name here is what we get in there. Okay, so that's our M code. I'm going to just click cancel. We didn't do any changes there. When we work with Power Query, it's different to working with Excel. In Excel, we can refer to cells very easily. In Power Query, we mostly apply transformations to the entire table or to the entire column. Very rarely we are working with single cells. Okay. Let's understand a little bit of what we have here for how we can refer to how we can refer to cells and rows and columns. So the last step generates for us this table. Okay. If I want to refer to just this column in another step, let's say I needed to refer to that column. If I click here in the FX, it automatically gives me the change type there. let's just do this. Come here where it says change type and right click, rename, and let's do let's call it final table without spaces. Final table. Enter. There's an uppercase Y there. That it doesn't matter, but it's just okay. Final table. How can I refer to the column there? Well, if I click here and I say final table, I could, for example, remove other columns. We could do that. And then we could transform. Let's see if I have it here. Transform to list. Not sure if I have it in this menu here. Otherwise, we can use transform and convert to list. Okay. If we see here, it's saying removed other columns is the previous step, and then brand was the name of the column. In fact, if I remove this step here, let's try that. Okay. And if I remove that one step there, I'm just trying to make this easier for you, but maybe I'm not being very successful. Okay, so this is what I want. So we have a table in the step final table. If I say final table, which is the name of the step, and when we refer to a name of a step, we are actually referring to what the result of that step is. So final table is in fact a table and is also the name of the step. And then if you put in between brackets brand, it is referring to the column brand in that table. Okay, so I have, if I go up, I have column brand. If I say this step, square brackets brand, I have a column, which, and when we do this, this is in fact a list. Okay, if I want, let me go back and do this all at once so it's clear for you. Let's say we wanted to say the release date. Okay, so a new step refers to the previous step final table, and then if I put in between square brackets release date, and I need to be very careful with uppercase and lowercase, because if I do different, it will give me an error. Probably this one. Okay, that worked. Okay, so we got the column. If I want to refer to one specific cell, for example, the year 2000 here is row number 3. One way of doing it could be click the cell, right click and do drill down. And what it gives me is the name of the previous step and then number 2 in between brackets. Why curly brackets? Why number 2? Because for the rows, Power Query starts counting on 0. So row number 1 is item 0 of this list, this column. And then number 2 is, second row is item 1, third row is item 2. So 0, 1, 2. So that's what we have here. Okay. If I go up here and put the curly brackets there, I get automatically what I was getting on the next step. So if I do this, I go directly from the table to extracting one single value. And what does that mean? It means go to the table, then go to the column release date, and then pick me the third row because I start counting from 0. Okay. What if I do the other way around? What if I just indicate, going to delete this, I cut that. What if I just indicate the number of the row? Well, if I do this, I get all the information in that row. So I get, it's a record, right? So if I go up 1, and if we click here, we also can see a preview here at the bottom of the entire row, but I'm not doing any transformation. I'm just seeing that record. It gives me the name of the columns here, the names of the columns, and then the values in those columns. So if I want to extract this value 2000 from this row, I need to refer to the row and then the column, or then first to the column as we just did before and then the row. It doesn't matter. Okay, so if I do this final table, curly brackets to indicate column number 3 with the 2 in between, and then release date there, I get the record release date for this row. So I get this number 2000. Okay, so it seems that we are not doing much with this here, but if we have this understanding about the tables, the columns, and the lists, the columns and the rows, and how we can refer to that, we can take advantage of that in different projects. And I'm going to show you that in just a minute. So if I would load my data from now, I would get just a cell with the number 2000 in there. That's what we need. Okay. So I'm going to close here without saving. Okay. So we talked about what the M code is. We talked about how we can use Power Query to connect to a data source. In this case, it was a CSV file, but it could be many other kinds of different sources. And we talked about the M language that is behind the scenes being generated for us, but that we can try to understand and take that to our advantage. And we learned how we can find that M code in the Power Query editor, right? So let's continue. I'm going to be a little bit faster now, and I know it was not too slow, maybe for those who were trying to use the exercise file. I apologize for that. Nidhi, are there any comments, important comments that we should address now? If there are, would you please let me know?
Just a second. So there is a question. Do we have example from columns topic?
From columns topic, yes. So we will work with columns in just a minute, okay? So let's continue. Any other questions? Sorry, any other questions?
No, not yet.
I'm not sure if I answered the question. The question was if I have an exercise to work with columns, we will, if that's the question, we will get there. We just explained how we can refer to a column, and then we will get there again on a more practical example. Okay, so where can I learn the M language? You will get this in the PDF. To be honest, I haven't even looked at these links. These links were published just a week ago or so. There's a new website from Microsoft dedicated to Power Query, a blog, and a Twitter account. And they just released this image as the Power Query icon. Logo. So, but this is very new information. I'm passing the information to you. I haven't really explored those links yet. If you are interested in learning Power Query and exploring all those functions, here in this link, let me bring the page for you. It's part of the Microsoft Docs platform. This one is about Power Query and the M language. You have a lot of resources here. Here we have Power Query M functions. And from here, you will be able to find all the functions. For example, table functions. You will see here table, for example, we said select columns, table select columns, one that we saw in our example. Table select columns, or what was it? RS, select columns here. And in here, you should be able to find, so we have the syntax, We have the explanation of the different fields. We have examples. Some are more complete than others because Microsoft is still completing this library. But every time you see something in Power Query generated in your code and you are curious about what that means and how to work with that, you can come to this place, this page, and see if you can find any extra information. Okay. Other learning resources. For example, I recommend this blog by Ben Gribaldo. If you are more of in the developer, if you work more as a developer, you have a strong sense of what programming is. Ben Gribaldo, in this series of blog posts, goes deep in how the M code works, all the little details. It's a very good series of posts as well. Just as a disclaimer, and as you know, I am not, I don't have a background as a programmer. I've been learning programming with VBA and now M code and a few other languages, but just as I need. I'm not, I don't have a strong background, technical, very technical in programming. Okay, so I'm just passing you what I've learned. So how to learn, be curious, strive to improve and simplify the processes. When you create a query today, maybe tomorrow you will have a little bit of extra time. Try to see if you can improve it, if you can simplify the steps, if you can understand the language. And again, view formula bar to activate the formula bar and use the advanced editor button to see the code. We will see more examples. So we already saw how to refer to the column as a list, to a row which is a record, and to a cell which is a value, all part of a table. We will now see an example of how to apply that to a specific situation. Okay, so let's do that. I have another example here. Where we have a file, Excel file, that is connecting to this folder. So imagine you work for a company that has different stores, and every month or every week or whatever, you receive a different, the same report from the different stores. And people don't, you have asked them to name the files using the store code like this one is, but people have not been very careful. They keep sending you the information with all kinds of different names. So you cannot really rely in how the file name is, because the file always comes named differently. Okay, this file here. So from now on, I am assuming that you are used to Power Query and that you understand the work that I have already done here. I'm going to show you what's in here. So if we go to data, queries and connections, here on the side, I'll get the queries that are created already in this file. And we see that we have a main query called store reports, and we have a collection of helper queries that are generated by Power Query when we are connecting to a folder. So this is the main query. Let me put this a little bit bigger. Hopefully it will be enough. Is connecting to this folder here. Okay, and when we are in this step, we see that we have 3 files in that folder, and then we go through a series of steps to extract, to combine the information in all those folders, in all those files into just one table. So at some point we get to this step where we get the data from the different files here. I have Calgary CSV file, and then I have the other file names here as well. So the 3 files are combined into just one table. And that's one of the powers of Power Queries, to allow us to do that so easily. And then at the end, I have an extra step, removed columns. I remove that column with the file names because they are so inconsistent. But now I really wanted a column to tell me the store from where each row comes from, because now I don't know if these sales are from Toronto, Calgary, the city, I don't know, okay? If we go here to this pane and we will see the other queries. In this helper queries collection, there's one query here that says transform sample file. And this is the query where we explain to Power Query what to do with one of those files. And then Power Query applies the exact same steps to all the other files that we have in the folder before combining those files into just one that will be one table that will be in this query. If we go through the steps here, we see that the first step is saying connect to the CSV document. Okay. And by doing that, we see all the sheet in that document, including what the first row where we had the word location in one cell and then the code of the store there. And we are interested in getting this code to put in our in one extra column in our data. Okay. Then we have other steps here that say remove the first two rows, promote headers means use the first row as column headers, and then split column by delimiter for the client column here to separate the client ID from the name. That's what this step is doing. But again, now the store name, the store code disappeared. So how can I get a column here with that store code? So if I go back to the step source, I know that that code is in column 3, row 1, which will be index 0, okay? So if I create a step that says, look at step source, and then give me column 3, row 1, I get the information I want. So I'm going to the last step, come here to create a new step, and then I'm going to say, go to the source, okay, square brackets for column, give me, and then I need to put the exact name of the column there, column 3, okay, and then give me row number, was it number 3? I can't remember, let me see. Number 3, which, and then I need to use, let me see if I'm doing correct. No, it's not, it's row number 2, right? No, row number 1, okay, column 3, row number 1, so it's index 0. So I need to come here and say index 0. Okay, so this gives me the store code. I can even rename this step here, and call it store code. Okay, now I need to go back to where I was before. I have this table and I want to add a new column with the store code in that column. To make this easier, I'm going to also rename this column here, rename this step. I'm going to rename and say sales table, maybe sales table, okay. Now coming to here, I'm going to create a new step and I'm saying sales table. So what this does is it forces Power Query to go back to there, but after I have created the store code. So now at this point, Power Query knows what store code means. So I'm going to say in this step where you have the sales table, create a column. So add columns, custom column, and in that column, let's call the column store ID, for example. And what do you want in that column? I want the value to be throughout the entire column always the same. And that here I have the columns available, but it's not a column that I want to put in there. I want to put the step store code. Okay. Okay. So let's see what happened. Here at the top, now I have a new column. So we were here, that column did not exist. Now here we have a new column. Let me put it to the right. That is called store ID, as exactly as I asked Power Query to do. And in each row, we have the store code. Okay, nice. So this is working for, I'm working on the transform sample file query, and the transform sample file query is working with a sample file, and the sample file is one of the files in that folder, happens to be the first one, is Calgary. Okay. So I explained Power Query what to do with that one file. And now in here, Power Query will be able to do that with all the other files in that folder and combine everything. So now when I come back to the main file, main query store reports, at the end, I have a store ID column. And if we click here, we now see that all the stores got, all the files got the store ID, because all the reports have that code in that same cell. In that column 3, first row, they all have this code. So I was able to extract this from that explanation I gave to the sample file, transform sample file query. I hope this makes sense. So now we are good to go. Now the only thing we would need would be to indicate the correct data types for each column. I have one class just recently on my YouTube channel that goes through the concept of data type and what we should choose in each situation. Feel free to check that. I'm not going to do this so that we move on, but I recommend that before you load your data, I'm going to do close and load, always make sure to define your data types for all the columns correctly. Okay. It's not coming. Close and load. Let's see. Now we have it. So the store ID now shows in our data. And now if we needed to do maybe a pivot table to do some analysis by store, now we have this information in our data. Okay. So that was example number 1. Let me close. I'm not going to save. And let's move to the next example. So we have I just completed 1 hour, so I don't have much more time. I have a few other examples. So let me see here. Can I have 10 more minutes, Nidhi?
Yeah, sure, mom. Sure.
Yeah, if you need me to stop, let me know, okay?
Yeah.
So other examples, first sheet of each file. This example happens, oh no, I skipped one example. In fact, let's do the example number 2 that is much more useful for everyone. Example number 2, dynamic path to source file. Let me put back here. So this is the example I'm going to present now, okay? This is one of the requests I hear more about when we are talking about Power Query and connecting to other files. When I open that Excel file, I will explain what's in there. Let me first show you here. We have this folder, and in this folder, we have different files, one for each month. So the first one has sales for 2019, just January. If we go scroll down, we see it's just January data. And then the second one has January and February and so forth. So this one has January, and then below we have February too, and then so forth. The other one has March included, and the other one also has April included, etc. This query here, data queries and connections, is connecting to one file. If we go to the source step, we can see that in here at the top, here at the top, we can see that is connecting to a specific file. In this case is the file for January. And the path to that file is hard-coded there. Okay. So what happens if I close that query settings. Okay. That's what I wanted to do. Let me close this. What happens is if now the next month I want to connect to the February file, the hard way would be coming here and change that path in the M code. That's one way of doing it. But then I need to be keeping doing that every month. So what can we do to avoid that? A couple of things we need to build in our Excel file. I created one cell here. Let me maybe put this bigger. I created one cell here where the user can type in the year, and one cell where the user can type the month number. So this would be for January. Then in this cell here that I called this file folder, I have an Excel formula that you can, if you need this formula, let me know. There's a video there in my channel too, or there's a video on another presentation that I can show you to explain exactly how to get this. In fact, in that video, I don't use the let function. That is a recent function in Excel. I use other ones, but the important one is the cell function here. What this formula does, this function here in Excel does, is it recognizes where the file is saved. So using this formula, if you see here, this path is the path where is this one here, is where I have my file saved. Not here, sorry, not here, here. This is my sales report Excel file. This is where the file is saved, okay? And what I know is that the CSV files that have my data to where I want to connect are in the all sales file folder. So I need to add all sales files to that other path that I have. And then I need to add the name of the file after the folder name. So that's what's built in here. In this cell, I use the formula in Excel that says, combine, let's see what it says. See if I can put this bigger. Combine what I have in the cell, this file folder, which is this cell, and then concatenate with all sales files. This is the subfolder. And then all the files are named the same. This is the first portion of the file name. And then B1 goes get the year. And then the other portion here is to have dash, space, etc. And then the month written with 2 digits, okay? And then concatenate with .csv. So this is the Excel formula that generates the complete cell, the complete file path. So now that I have the complete file path here, my mission is to send this information to Power Query and tell Power Query, connect to the file that is in this path here, okay? So to do that, we need 2 things. We need to give a name to this cell that has the result of that formula, and I call this month file path. I'm going to copy that. To name a cell, you select the cell, you come here, and just type in whatever you want as long as it doesn't have spaces, and a couple more rules, but in general, just don't put spaces, okay? So month file path is the name of this range that is composed of just one cell, and inside this cell, we have the file path. Okay. I'm going also to need this little bit of M code that I put in here. And the M code has a name here, and the name I'm going to replace with month file path that I mentioned was the name of that cell. Okay. I'm going to copy this because we are going to use this in our query. Just to explain what's in here. This is a bit of code that you can save in your secret folder of magic tricks that you need to use every now and then. Just put this there in a text file. Excel current workbook indicates Power Query to look at the current workbook, and then look for names in this workbook. In particular, look for a named range, named month file path, and inside that range, look for the content of that range. And like I said, the content is just one cell. So in that range, look for column 1, it's just one column anyways. And for first row, which is row 0, that is also just one cell anyways. But that's the code we need to use, okay? So I'm going back to my query, the query that was connecting to that specific file. And I'm going to replace this path here, okay? But I need to do something. Let's go to View, Advanced Editor. And in this Advanced Editor window, let me put this a little bit bigger. Okay. In this first row, I click here, enter, go up, and I'm going to create an extra step. I'm going to name it source 0. Source 0 equal, and I just put the code that I brought from there, okay? And I already explained what this means. Put a comma there. I'm going to do done. I'm not done, but I'm going to do done, just to show you something. If I click in that step, you see it's giving me what I have in that cell. Okay, so that's what I wanted. So now let's go back, View, Advanced Editor. Now, since source 0 generates what I want to have in here, I'm going to delete all this string, everything that is in between double quotes, including the double quotes, and I'm going to type source 0 there, which is the previous step that generates the exact same result as I had here before, okay? The first step at the end, don't forget to put the comma there. Let's do done. And that's it. We see there's no errors. There's no errors. I'm going to zoom out. We get everything, home, close and load. Okay. So now, what's the advantage of all this? I'm going to zoom out a little bit. The advantage is that now, if I come here and say, I want month number 2, you see here the path changed to indicate the name of the file correctly, 2019 February. I still don't have data for February, but now when I do right-click refresh, or if I click here and do refresh, or if I do data refresh all, or click this button, let's see our data. You see, now I got the February data. So with that little trick there, now every month we get a new report. We just need to come here, put the file in that folder, make sure the file is named always the same way, come here, choose the month. Now I want the file for month number 3. Okay, refresh. And if you come here, now we have January, February, March. Okay, we have data for January, February, March. And that's it. So that's how we can make the path dynamic to the files. We could also apply this technique to the folder, but if you are connecting to a folder, maybe it's a good idea to apply that step source 0. Sorry about these notifications. I forgot to disconnect my Teams here. Every time we apply that step 0, we need to, if we are connecting to a folder instead of a single file, we need to apply that step 0 to both the query that is the general query, plus go back to those helper queries and see where we need to apply to change the source as well. So That's it. I have other examples, but because I introduced that introductory activity at the beginning so that everyone could understand what Power Query is and how we can understand the steps, the M code a little bit better. I don't have time for the other examples. I hope these 2 or 3 examples were useful enough for you. Let me know, Nidhi, if we have any other questions.
Participants are asking, is the code for the folder same as the file path?
Okay, let me go here. So this example that we used before, let me close this file. Maybe let's leave it open in case I need it. So this previous file here, we were connecting to the folder. Remember this file before? We were connecting to a folder where we have the store reports. Okay. Let's do an example here. The store reports folder. I copied the path and I'm going to put the folder path in here. Okay. So now it's up to you, depending on the situation that you need, but you would do the same thing. You can maybe have a formula here to generate the path that you need in each situation. Or maybe you can just come here and type the path. And let's say every month you need to change something to the folder, you can come here and maybe just change the name of the folder. So you find a way of having the path to the folder in one cell. Okay. Name this cell. Let's name this cell folder path. Okay. So this is the cell. I'm going to even paint this in yellow. Okay. Now let me grab all that information so that I don't do any mistakes. Let's use this that we used before. I'm going to copy this. Now we have the main query that here in the source step. I'm not zooming, just a second. Okay, here in the source step, we have that path hard coded. So we would do the same thing. We would come here to view advanced editor. We create a step here that says source 0, okay, equal. I copy that. The name of the cell now is not this one, it was folder path, okay, comma there. And here I put folder path instead of all these. Okay, I'm going to copy these 2 rows now. Control C. I'm going to do done. I'm going to just put this bigger a little bit so that everyone can see what I did here. So now done. It's giving me the import folder matches, no exports. Okay, so it was not folder path. Let me close and load. Okay, it's giving me an error, no problem. Folder path. That should have worked. Let's see. Oh, I know. I did a mistake there. Sorry. Because the source now it's a similar technique that we need to apply, but of course it's not current workbook. Let's see. Let's see where I made a mistake here somewhere. Just a second, bear with me. So view, advanced editor, folder files. No, it should have worked. Folder files, folder path. Oh, sorry. I know where the mistake is. Here, I need to refer to the previous step. So I need to refer to source 0. That's where I made a mistake. So source 0 is what I need to put here because the result of step source 0 is what gives me the path. Okay. So let's do that. Okay, so now it's good. So source 0 grabs the folder path, and then source refers to, we had folder files. That's the code generated for us when we are connecting to a folder. And then we replace the path by the name of the previous step. Okay, so it's working. The other thing that I would do is come here to the helper queries. And here in the transform, if I'm not mistaken, let's see here in the source step, I would do the same transformation. So let me come here, view, advanced editor, copy these 2 rows, Control C, done. Go to this query, transform sample file, advanced editor, and replace the source. Do the same. It's not replaced with those 2 columns. It's not replaced with those 2 rows. I need to do the same thing. It's better to be careful. So source 0, let me paste here. I can paste, but then I don't need this one. You see, because this one is source csv.document. The other one was source folder file. So I don't need that. I need this source 0, put the same thing there. And then in here, no, sorry. In fact, we don't need to do anything like here because here we don't have the source. It's not in this query. Sorry about that. Let me, so cancel. Discard, yes, it's not in this query here. Let's go check this other one. Not this one, not this one, is this one. The sample file, that's the one, sorry. So the sample file, we need to look in all these queries where we have a source step that has the folder path hard-coded. And go to the view query editor. Okay, so here, that's where we have the folder hard-coded. That's what we need to paste those 2 steps. So that's it. Okay, sorry about the confusion. So replace the previous step where we had the folder hard-coded and replace with these 2, the same rows that we built before. Okay. This guarantees that the sample file used to explain Power Query what we want it to do with the files inside the folder is always pointing to the same folder that we are going to use. Okay, so home, close, and load. Now let's see if this is working. That is pointing to the store reports folder. I'm going to copy that folder, paste the folder here, and name this folder the same way, but with a number 2. And let's imagine that this folder only has 1 file. And let's imagine that this file, I open the file, has 1 location with code India. Okay, save, close. So here, let's test. Now I want to point to store reports 2. Right click, refresh. I had an error there. Did I give the name correctly to my? It's not going well, just a second. So store reports 2, it's correct. Store reports 2. Store reports too. That's the name of the folder. Why do I get an error here? Okay. It's just not, it's not exactly an error. Sometimes we get this when we are connecting to, okay, it's the firewall error. You can come here to home, file, file, options and settings, query options. Come to the current workbook, privacy, ignore privacy levels. This, you can do this if you are not communicating with other databases, or if you are communicating with just local files that you have access to, you can use this option without any problems, okay? And it even makes your queries faster. But I never got this error before. So it should work, but for some reason it's not working. No, now it's working. Okay, so that's it. There. Let me see. Let me just check if this other file here is working well. Oh, I was trying to see the column India appear, but because I didn't save the file when I demonstrated before, it's not going to show. I would have to repeat that step to generate that column with the store code, that demonstration that we did. I just wanted to show you that that was happening, but that won't show because I didn't save that file. Okay, so but we can see here that now we are pointing to a folder that only has one file, the file tor. Remember that I deleted those other files. The folder now only has one file. So this is working, okay? A little bit of bumps here to get you the answer, but the short answer to your question is the technique is the same. In that cell, instead of putting the path to the file, you put the path to the folder. And make sure to implement that in the main query, plus the helper query that says sample file, come here and implement the same change to the source. Okay, so that's it. I hope I answered the question, and it took me a little bit of time, but that's how things work, right? When we are working on our in Excel, that's how it goes. Things don't always go exactly beautiful and perfect at the first trial. So that's it. Let me just go back here very quickly just to finish and give you my contact information. This is the Meetup, Excel Meetup group. If you go to meetup.com, MS Excel Toronto, the group has almost 2,000 members at the moment. We do sessions every month. You are more than welcome to join us. This is my YouTube channel. I recommend you going to playlists and look at the Excel report automation, where I have live classes recorded there with a lot of different techniques. And this is where you can find me. Subscribe to my newsletter if you are interested in receiving news about what I am up to and things that are new in the Excel world, and all the different platforms where you can find my content, including Telegram, where I share the files for the live classes that I have on YouTube. I know we are more than, I think we are over the time. I'm not sure if you let me know, Nidhi, if you still have time and want to accept more questions, that's great. Otherwise, let me know. Do we have, are we on time or over time? I can't remember.
We are on time, ma'am.
Okay. If there are any other questions and we still have time, feel free to let me know.
So there is a question.
Sure.
Can we promote a parameter on file opening to input folder location?
Can we say that again?
Can we promote a parameter on file opening to input folder location?
I believe so. I haven't used it like that, but I know it's possible to work with parameters. There's a, so can I share my screen?
Yeah, sure.
share screen. Here. I've worked with parameters for other things to pass filters for keywords to filter data, for example, but we can work. I believe you will probably get, if you are connecting to a folder and you are using parameters to connect to a folder, you will probably get that same firewall error that we just saw happening the last example that I created to answer that question. But again, coming to file and options and settings, query options, if you are dealing with local files, there's no problem in doing this. Privacy at the current workbook level, not at globally. Privacy, ignore privacy levels to avoid that parameter firewall error when you use parameters. So manage parameters, you should be able to create parameters here, new parameter, and indicate, but now I don't have an example to explain you that in this situation, but you can create a parameter as a text, and then you should be able to use that parameter here in the M code. But like I said, I have used parameters for other situations, not so much. So here in the code, you could use the parameter, and in the hem code, you should be able to use the parameter here to combine maybe the folder as a parameter and then the name of the file, another parameter. Excuse me. That's one option too, but I would have to test it first. Maybe I'll do that in one of my classes soon. That's a good question, in fact. Any other questions?
That's all, ma'am. We are done with the questions. So,
Okay.
thank you so much. That was indeed a very informative session. And
Thank you so
we would
much
love
too.
to
I
hear
hope.
about your journey, ma'am. How was it? How has it been so far?
Sorry, could not hear you.
We would love to hear about your MVP journey. How has it been so
Oh,
far?
well, it's been a great adventure. It was an unexpected adventure when someone told me that they wanted to nominate me. It was around beginning of 2020. Another MVP came to me and said that he would like to nominate me for the work that I was doing. I didn't believe the work was that relevant, but they insisted, and it ended up that I ended up getting the award. And the opportunities that come with that award are amazing, because we get the opportunity to connect to other MVPs, to connect to the Microsoft Excel team engineers, and discuss problems, the new features in the tools, the bugs, how we could improve. We have the opportunity to participate and give our input in how we think that the tool could be improved, and so it's been an amazing journey. I'm very grateful for that, for sure.
Great to hear that, ma'am. Would you like to share any tips to someone who is pursuing career in Power BI or data analysis?
I do not work with Power BI yet. Excel has kept me busy enough, and I do work with Power Query in Excel. I work with DAX in Excel. I work with Power Pivot in Excel. I just don't do that in Power BI, where we can build all those visuals for those dashboards. I haven't just had the opportunity yet to work on a project like that. I'm sure that will come anytime soon. For anyone wanting to learn either Excel or Power BI, any of these tools, I would say try to find opportunities to work with real problems. When you work with real problems, you put yourself in a situation where you really have to think outside the box to find solutions for that specific problem. Use Google or any other internet browser to find answers to your questions, and then try to put all the pieces together to complete your solution. And of course, I also recommend following content creators on YouTube. That helps creating an idea of what is possible to do with Excel and Power BI. And when you are watching a video, even if you don't understand it right away, you again get that seed in your brain that that is possible, and at a later date you will be able to apply that when the time comes where you need those techniques. And also, of course, it's always very useful to complete a few courses, because the content that is offered for free in YouTube, blogs, etc., it's not structured and organized. And with courses, we get the information in a flow that goes from simpler information to more complex, and helps us really organize our ideas and combine everything together, create a more comprehensive understanding of what the tools do and how we can use them. So those are my tips. Use real cases as much as possible. The courses usually give you scenarios, give you exercise files, but then the real scenarios, if you are able to work with real situations, is where you will find an opportunity to force yourself to go further. And one place where you can find those opportunities, if you don't have the opportunity to use real case scenarios in your company, is going to forums where people ask questions about Excel or Power BI, and try to help other people that put questions there, try to help them. And by putting the effort to find a solution for that question, as if that question was your own, it will make you grow your skills and your understanding of the tool.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Those were wonderful tips. I myself would follow all of them surely. So, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being with us today and enriching our participants with great knowledge.
My pleasure.
And thank you, participants, for staying with us till the end. And I hope you all enjoyed the session. So do not forget to like the video, and for more updates, subscribe to our channel. To know more on EI Fresh Talk, use the link in the description. Stay tuned for more Fresh Talk. Happy weekend and thank you all. Thank you,
Thank
ma'am,
you.
so
Feel free
much.
to to contact me on LinkedIn or any other platform as well, as I showed before. My contacts are on the PDF file. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was a great
Bye.
pleasure.
It was a pleasure having you,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
We learned a
Yeah.
lot. Thank you.